Just a quick note before we begin. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. We are not licensed professionals, just parents who've experienced unimaginable loss. This isn't meant to replace help from a therapist, doctor, or other mental health professional. If you're struggling, please reach out to someone qualified. You are not alone. Welcome to Don't Forget to Breathe. I'm Bruce Barker, and I'm joined this season by my new co-host, Kristin Glenn. As I shared in our last episode, Kristin is officially joining the podcast, and I couldn't be more honored to have her here. If you haven't yet heard Kristin's story, I invite you to listen to Season 3, Episodes 30 and 31, where she shares her journey of more than 30 years as a bereaved parent. Today, we begin Season 4, our first of many conversations together, not only as bereaved parents, but now as co-hosts, creating space for honesty, connection, and shared understanding. Let's listen to our conversation. Hey, Kristin.
Hey, Bruce.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much. What a journey we both have taken to get to this point of being on a podcast together, your podcast, and thank you for welcoming me.
And now it's yours too. So
it's a gift.
I am so excited. You and I have talked about, obviously talked about this before, but one of the things that I thought was really cool is the first time I met you when I was coming up to Fort Collins this is, when you were an executive director of the nonprofit that I've talked about. And it was, like an hour. That was kind of like what was on the agenda. And then several hours later, and
like
we're
all
still
day.
talking. And so that's kind of what it was. And then when this, we did your episode at the end of Season 3, it was the same thing. So as we're talking back and forth, I'm having that same feeling of like, okay, like we need to do more of this. And there's so many subjects you and I have talked about before that I think we can really explore as we go forward with the podcast.
I agree. I think there's unfortunately endless all the things that can be talked about when you're looking at the enormous trauma and journey and, of child loss. It's kind of unending the parts of our lives that have changed and that we hope to help others through and listen to their wisdom. And I've learned from every single bereaved parent I've ever had the honor of being with.
Yeah. And we, what I did in Season 3 was the introduction of the parent stories and getting those perspectives. As we know, everyone's loss is unique, and you have had many, many, many conversations, deep conversations with parents who are in this same boat with us, but every story very unique. And I think this is great that we can just have a continuation of parents sharing their stories of loss and life after loss. And like you said, there have been so many little pearls of wisdom that have come out of from their experience. So the same as when I do when I'm facilitating a group, it's never coming from a standpoint of, well, you should do this and you should do that. It's, well, what worked for me was, or what didn't work for me was, and you're talking about personal experience. And so when they're doing the same thing, I've had these conversations and even still, so again, 19 years out, and just even the last month with a dad's group, that I'm hearing something and going, wow, that is really good. That would have been helpful for me many years ago. But I mean, it's that same thing. Like we're learning something new all the time. And in this format, we get to share that just to be able to help other people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think from one of those groups, I remember a very Tinder moment where someone said, I can be in a stadium full of people and feel completely alone, but I walk into this group or hopefully listen to this podcast and feel like people get it. I don't have to start from ground zero of who am I, what's my family comprised of as far as children, etc. It's people are at a beginning point of getting it. And I think it creates such a safe space. And those pearls, as you put it, I think are always, you just want to tuck them in your heart and make sure you remember them when you're having your own moments of feeling very alone and very isolated. My loss happened, 32 years ago, and there's still times that I feel like, can anyone possibly understand a glimmer of what this is like this many years later? And because of what I've been involved with and who I've chosen to associate with, the answer is yeah, I have someone on the other end of a phone at 2:00 in the morning if I need them this many years later. And I think that's important. And I'm hoping that we can create that this will be kind of a place that people can go at any time, day or night, that they could listen to something and feel less alone and like they have their group column, like grief warriors is what one mom said, that do get it to a level. No, none of our stories are the same, but we have had to journey through this unthinkable reversal of life.
I know we've said this before, and you just said it, is that you get it. So when you talk about other parents who have lost a child, the term, that they get me or you get it, I think that's what I use when I'm talking to someone. And I think that's a powerful way to put it, rather than, which we've all heard, is those who, again, in different situations, right? Is, well, I know how you feel. No, you don't.
No
Even
way.
though we have both lost children, I don't know how you feel. You don't know how I feel, but we get it. We get we get the pain. We get the brokenness. We get the hurt. We get all of those things. And I think it's just the best way to put it. And
it is such a difference. I have no idea how you feel. I have no idea how anyone feels. And I have found that bereaved parents are very unlikely to give advice to each other because they've learned it's not helpful, because we have not lived each other's true realities. I don't have advice. I can certainly hold space and sit and companion, but I don't know how you're feeling. I don't know your relationship with your daughter. I don't know your pain, but I get that we've had to both journey through this kind of unthinkable reversal of what we're supposed to go through. I think, when you're younger, you think, what are the possible losses I'm going to have to endure in my life? I remember thinking that, even as a young adult, and it felt unimaginable to lose my grandparents at the time, or even my parents, or a best friend, or a spouse, or, a beloved mentor. But you can't really fathom that you could be in a situation that you have had this upheaval, that you have lost a child that's supposed to outlive you. And that's where the get it comes from, I believe.
I'm gonna stay on that subject for a second, or that phrase on the get it. It is a comforting phrase. It's a comforting feeling to know that somebody gets you, right? Or you're there's where that connection is, and that's one of the things. And even the name of the podcast is like where we're creating that space for connection. So whether it doesn't matter where you're listening to this podcast, and literally, we can see, we can't see actually who, we just see where, but literally around the entire world, that this is a community where we get each other. And so it's one of those things like, and we've heard it in movies, we've heard it in conversations, when someone talks about someone else and like in a relationship or whatever, and goes, he just gets me, or she just gets me. It's the same thing. And what a comforting feeling that is. Um, like you said, to go from a stadium feeling alone to a room with 20 people, 20 bereaved parents, and you're a community, you're connected because they get you and you get them.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's just a little bit of peace in that, and I know I looked for as much of that as I could find throughout the journey, is you want those little moments of peace and the moments of belonging and those moments of people kind of getting you and not shunning you almost.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember the first time, walking into a bereaved parent support group and just thinking, this cannot possibly be my group.
Yeah.
This is the others. This is not where I belong. I can't possibly have become a member of this unthinkable group, and within an hour of sitting next to these incredible people, realizing, yeah, and thank goodness they're here. But you want to deny that you could possibly get it.
Yeah.
You don't want to get it, because I think
No.
our whole lives we kind of protect ourselves from imagining that we could possibly, this happens to other people and it's very tragic and we feel so bad for them and we have sympathy for them, and we also try to avoid them. Sadly, I think I did, because it was just too, as I had young children, I didn't want to think that this could be my reality.
Yeah.
So I think I was guilty also of not leaning into other people's grief, because it just felt like I don't know what to say, so I'm going to really err on the side of saying nothing. So to be in other people's space where you realize they're not afraid um, of that vulnerability. But I
Yeah.
do remember, those first couple groups, especially feeling like, how can this be? How can I have become the others?
Mm-hmm.
How can I get it so well? I don't want to. I want to reject this.
Oh yeah. And mentioning that, and saying that, as we look forward to this season, to season 4 of the podcast, one of the, or maybe even a couple of episodes that we'll do is not necessarily for bereaved parents, but for friends, family, coworkers, neighbors, whatever, that's going to be directed toward them. So that very thing of, what do I say? What do I not say? What do I do? What do I not do? Do I invite them? Do I not invite them? All of those things that make it so awkward because we don't, we've tried, and there are others trying to normalize the conversation around grief, but it's not there yet. And what do we do with it? And like you said, the easiest thing is, I don't say anything, or I don't see them, I don't invite them. All of those things, even though our heart's in a place that I want to be able to do something. So we're going to be doing some episodes talking specifically about that. That um, so our listeners that follow, you can send that to them and go, listen to this episode. This will help you walk with me on my journey. So that it's kind of like educating them a little bit from our experience, and so that it becomes less awkward, so that there can be support when they need support, where right now they don't know, and how should they?
Absolutely. I feel like that's going to just be invaluable. I think to believe that you're going to live a life without grief is just not realistic. So
No.
to know that you will have grief in your life and you will need support from others, and that we kind of live in a culture that doesn't know quite how to do this. So if we can bridge that gap in any way, offering wisdom from some that have been on this side of it, I think will be such an incredible way to have real life strategies. Again, not giving
Yeah.
advice, but but saying, leaning towards someone's grief isn't scary. And you can always ask for forgiveness if you feel like, oops, I think I said something that might have been not helpful. I do, the wise person had told me early on in my own grief to say, come up with kind of a mantra. And I remember saying, I know what you just said was meant to be helpful. I know it was well intended. It actually wasn't, but
Yeah.
it wasn't helpful. But, gently guiding towards people towards a space that they can feel more comfortable with, feeling comfortable with the uncomfortable,
Yeah.
so that they can, not be so bewildered by how to hold space in these they're awkward situations. I'm not saying that they're not, but I'm just so grateful to begin into this podcast community of, normalizing grief. This happens, and one type of grief happens to people every single second of every single day, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I can tell you right now that'll be the title of the one of the episodes is feeling comfortable with the uncomfortable, and that's what we're gonna try to do. Um, so, like I say, those that are listening, it gives you an episode that you can send and they can listen to, because I have, and I'll give you a couple examples. So one is coworkers or people that I meet or whatever, and something comes up that I've got a podcast, and they're like, "Oh, cool. What's the name of your podcast? Because I want to listen." I'm like, "Okay, so this probably is not. It's not a feel good podcast, and here's the subject." And then they're like, "Oh, okay, all right, yeah." So, um, this, and it's the same as for the parent story. So those again, those parents that come on and they want others to hear their friends or family or coworkers, like, if you want to know my story, these are the episodes that I was on, and you can do that. So I think you mentioned that you had sent the episodes you were on, you had sent to someone, and they're like, "Ooh, okay, all right, all right, I got to really prepare for this." Right. So there was that whole anticipation because of the subject. And now we can send, when we have some of these episodes specifically for those that walk the journeys with us, that now it's easy to go, "Hey, listen to this episode. This one is actually for you." And then maybe they feel a little more comfortable with the uncomfortable to now listen to another story and learn from the mouths of the parents that this is what they've experienced, and have a little more tools in the toolbox, so to speak, to just be able to support. Not going to fix it, but just to walk alongside. So I'm really looking forward to those episodes.
me
Yeah.
too. I think they're invaluable. I could have used them. Well, I can still use them, but
Oh, yeah.
even I can absolutely, I'll gain so much from that. And yeah, the person that I was like, I'm going to send this to you. And he was like, I'm going to brace myself. I've got to be in the right headspace. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so heavy. And of course he said it was, and he learned a lot about, my specific story, but he said, I can't believe, but there was parts that there was laughter and there was, some hope and some joy. And I hope that's also what we can provide to people, is that there is a choice towards allowing sorrow and joy to coexist. It is
Yeah.
not, an either or, that we have chosen to not only survive this loss, but to want to live. And that's part of what, when you and I had the podcast together about my specific story, that I think hopefully this podcast becomes more far reaching, because as people journey through really hard things in their life, and they're the people that find ways to choose life and choose joy without downgrading that the sorrow is always part of our reality, but that both can be part of our reality. So I hope that, people will listen just to have some inspiration, as I do,
Yeah.
from all the people I meet that have gone through this unthinkable type of trauma.
Yeah, I think that I know that people they disappeared in my life, and I think it was again because they don't know how am I going to be like? Are they going to invite me to to the Christmas parties that I used to go to, and do are they going to? I mean, we're going to be laughing. Are they going to want to hear that? Like all those things that, and we'll talk about that in future episodes, so that we we have absolutely experienced the unimaginable, but that doesn't mean we're untouchable. Like you can still touch us and talk to us
Yeah,
and
we
say
don't
our
need to be in
child's name.
that's please do. Don't
Yeah.
bubble wrap us. I always felt
I
like I was in like bubble wrap and I'm like
yeah.
I'm still me. I'm still me and I need you to um not tiptoe around me when I'm in your presence because it makes me feel very invisible and very um protected and like I'm not being let into real life experiences.
Do you because I know this still has happened to me. Um I just have a lot of interactions with people with my real job. And I still can see people recoil when it comes up. Do you see that when it's
Absolutely.
tiny. It's not like this, oh my God, I have to start. It's just this tiny little recoil of they don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think it's driven by fear. I think it's driven by fear that this could become someone's reality. So it's one step closer to their worst fear. I think it's fear of what would I say? It's so interesting. Sometimes I'll, as you said, speak just a sentence of the reality of losing a child. And,
Mhm.
uh, I feel like tapping the phone and being like, did you hear me? Can you hear me
Yeah,
now? Like
yeah,
that commercial of like,
yeah.
I must have lost service all of a sudden because we went to total silence. For one
Mhm.
second, you could not hear me because there's no response often. It is this pause and then just kind of a distracting comment to move on to another topic.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's motivated by ill will at all. I think it is, which I love that you're going to make a pod or an episode by feeling comfortable with the uncomfortable because they all of a sudden we've made them feel very uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, Kristen, we're making that episode because remember, you're a co-host
That's
with me.
right. Yay. I'm
Um,
so excited to embark on that. I'll probably think of it as your podcast for a while, so I'll need to have nudges that we
oh,
get to do
hey,
this together.
your name's on the logo now, so
It's official.
it's official. Um, one of the one of the things that I noticed when along with people recoiling, right? And you probably experienced this far more than I have because of what you did as um in the role that you had with as an executive director, but meeting all of these different parents that depending where they are on their journey, what I have found that's happened a few times is if someone I knew lost a child, so a few years after Kristin died, after my daughter died, and then they had a loss that they couldn't they basically kind of put our conversation, our relationship on pause. And I had one in particular, and I've noticed this even recently, um, where I've been there to be helpful and had great conversations, but then if they don't want to feel it, then they avoid me, right? And so then I had one early on who had a loss and was reaching out to help, and eventually she had said, "I can't talk to you, not now, because you make it real." Because she was very close to what had happened with Kristen. She experienced those first few days, first few weeks with my grief, seeing my grief. And so now with hers, it becomes seeing me makes hers real. Because I know for me, I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want reality. And
Yeah.
we become reality. Is that has that happened to you as
Oh,
well?
absolutely. And I think being this far out for people to witness that, there's still tears and there's still really hard days and there's still milestones that I long for my Zachary to share with us as a family. And I think the moment that your child dies that this has changed you forever.
Mm-hmm.
But to see someone that's 32 years out or further even, I've become that reality for people of like, wow, I knew it was forever, but you're like proof that this is just integrated into who you are.
Yeah.
I feel like for years, if I was listing my roles in life, bereaved parent would be top one because it was all encompassing. It just overshadowed almost everything else that I was. And now it's part of my identity. But if I was listing who I am, it would be not in the top several things I list about myself.
Right.
It's still integrated into my deepest part of my soul. And I think people see that and think, wow, this impacts her this many decades later. So I think that's the reality that I, show people. And they know it, but they don't want to know it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think in my episode, I said, I called my husband right as the EMTs came and said, today our lives changed forever. And boy, in a moment of trauma and complete shock, how right I was. And
Almost an understatement. I
now
mean,
I'm living. Now I'm living it. Right.
yeah. And I don't know if I may have talked about this in previous episodes, but one of the things, and being this far out for me, and it also depends on where people are in their journey, and some may not want to hear it because I believe healing is possible. Now, I wouldn't have wanted to hear that for a very long time. I'm like, no, what does that mean, healing? And again, I don't know if I mentioned this in a podcast and all, but one of the things that the example that I have of that is it's the Japanese art of Kinzuki. And it's where it's a piece of pottery that has broken. And then what they did is then they put it back together with this adhesive and this gold flake or whatever it's made of, that's gold. And it strengthens it, and the pieces heal, they mold back together, but they don't try to hide the scar. And so what I did physically and this was, I think I started this 4 years ago, I painted a piece of pottery that um, depicted my life, Kristin's life, as a cycle. So it was this leaf. And maybe there's a way I can put this up on our YouTube site or something where you can see it. But and then I intentionally broke it.
Hmm.
And when I painted it was on Kristin's birthday. A year later on her birthday, I broke it.
Wow.
And then a little bit more than a year later, I was ready to put it back together. And because you have to do it one piece at a time, it's super slow. And as I'm doing it, it's just occurring to me, this illustration of this slow process of healing. And the brokenness, the pieces that are molded, are those scars. So while this piece will never be in its original shape, in its original form, which is our lives, we will never be as we were before. For me, I believe in that healing, but the scars are going to still be there. And there's going to be pieces, as there was in this piece that I did, where it was such a small piece that it was gone, and then it had to be filled in. So and there was one actually in this heart that was in the middle. There was a chunk of it was gone. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. There is a piece of me that is gone, but this put it back together and healed it and made it stronger. So that piece is stronger than it was before, but I'm not hiding the scars.
Yeah.
And so I'll always be different. The scars are there. And for me, it just shows the illustration is that yes, healing is possible. It's not pretty. Like the scars are scars. So the same as if any of us have had, cuts or surgeries or whatever, and we've got a scar, it's, you know, it's never the same. The skin, the whatever it is. And it's kind of the same with this. And that's what I did in that little illustration of it.
It's
So
beautiful.
I think healing's possible. And where we are is this far out. It doesn't mean we've forgotten. And it doesn't mean that we still, like, run your finger across those scars and you feel them. So
Yeah, I love that analogy. I think it's beautiful, and I think the scars can be also beautiful because they're part of our story. I have to say that I believe in the active verb of healing as well. I don't believe in the past tense verb of healed.
yeah.
So, don't feel like in the moment I leave this earth that I've healed, but I think I've made a lot of good progress in my mind and heart and body towards healing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a choice too, because, part of that choice towards healing for a while felt like dishonoring him.
Yeah.
Do I deserve, is it okay to seek healing? Or should I just sit in this pain because he died and I didn't? So there was guilt in seeking healing. So I really
Mm-hmm.
agree with you that healing as an active verb is part of my rest of my life's goal and journey, but to believe that I am healed, past tense, done, closure, all those words that kind of are platitudes in my opinion. I haven't put closure to this. I haven't done the fifth phase of, Kubler-Ross acceptance. I have integrated it into who I am, but I'll never accept that I am here and he is not. But I have chose the active, ongoing process of healing, and that's helped me and so many that I've had, like I said, the honor to be with.
We're going to pause our conversation right there and we'll pick up where we left off in the next episode as we talk about what's ahead in season 4. If you feel compelled, even just a little, to share your own story, we invite you to reach out to us. This podcast is one way to introduce the world to your child, to speak their name, and to share your grief, your struggles, and, if it feels true to you, the healing you've found along the way. You don't need any special equipment. We can record right where you are through a simple online platform. In fact, it's the same way Kristin and I recorded this episode. If you're considering sharing, please reach out. We can talk through the process together. This community would be honored to hold space for your story. You'll find our contact information at the end of this episode after the music. So until next time, I'm Bruce Barker, along with Kristin Glenn. And please, don't forget to breathe. One more thing, if you found meaning or comfort in these conversations, consider becoming a supporter of the Don't Forget to Breathe podcast. Your support helps keep these stories alive and makes it possible for others to find hope in their own grief journey. For as little as $3 a month, your support goes to offset costs associated with production. You can learn more on the information page for this episode. You can also contact us by going to the show notes and click on Send Us a Text. Or my contact email is bruce.barker61@yahoo.com. That's BRUCE.BARKER61@yahoo.com. Until next time.